Reserve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of America.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, I have Nick Ashley on the line. Nick was the last of the trifecta of young bucks from Childeberg I interviewed. We decided to talk about COVID and the lockdowns and all that kind of great tyranny. So I'm sure you will enjoy it, given it's a subject I haven't spent a whole lot of time on because there are many other people talking about it. And I have my Patreon up and operational. So if you want access to Year Zero ad-free or the new addition to the Year Zero family, which is I Done Told You with Beatrix, go to the Patreon. The tiers start at less than a cup of coffee a week or at TommySalmons.com. I will leave links down below so that you can find all the additional content being offered to you. As always, thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. And go visit RyanBunting.com. It's down below. Down below. Graphic design. Down below. All right. Enjoy the show.
Tell me I gotta... Yep. There it is.
All right. I am here with Mr. Nick Ashley. What is going on? My favorite shit poster.
Oh, I'm your favorite? That's very nice of you.
Here recently, man. Here recently. You've been keeping me quite entertained here the last probably the last 2 weeks.
I do think that I did keep a big section of Liberty Twitter entertained for the past weekend with the whole gazebo thing. So that was a lot of fun. I've talked about that on like 4 shows now, but so if you haven't heard about it, you missed out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the gazebos. That chapter of our lives is over.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of sick of the word at this point.
You know, I don't think I knew how to spell it before that.
Whenever you see a word so much, it starts to look funny. Every time I see it, I'm wondering if it's spelled right or like what's going on. Every single time I see it now, like, fuck, I've seen it so much now. I'm sorry, I just swore. I didn't know. I don't know.
No, you can cuss as much. Okay. If you don't cuss, I will be offended.
Okay, I've been doing that. Like I did 3 or 4 shows, and I started talking like that, and I'm like, oh crap, I need to make sure I could. Sorry guys, and then all of them thankfully were like, that's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
so
say whatever the fuck you want.
Cool, that's cool. All right, so anyway, about Israel now.
We can do Israel.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just picking because
that was your best Ryan Dawson impersonation.
Oh no, well, if we want to get kicked off of all the social medias, that's where we would start. Wow. He's back on Twitter for who knows how long.
He's got 2 accounts now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has one that's kind of an anonymous alt and one that's obviously him. The one that's clearly him is probably going to get banned real quick for ban evasion because it's too obvious that it's him.
Yeah. That's what they got you with that second time, right?
Yeah, the second time I got banned was from that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I got banned from my first account that was named Nick Ashley, and the handle was Nick__Ashley. And then I came back with another account. I don't even remember the @ but I changed the screen name, just the display name to, at first it was just Nick. I changed it to Nick Ashley after a couple of days because I was told it should be safe. And no, it was not safe. I got banned for that immediately. But we're back up with this third account. We've been doing just fine on it. Almost back where we were in terms of followers and traction since all the. It's been about a month now. It's tomorrow should be about a month, which is great. I didn't think it would happen that quickly.
Yeah, well, I asked you when I asked you to come on. I asked you if you wanted to do a trifecta because I interviewed Cotton earlier this week, and then I interviewed Ace last night,
Oh,
and then I brought you on as the trifecta for the Childerberg Young Liberty Childerberg guys that I met out there that I found impressive and really got along with.
hmm.
So
I appreciate that. Thank you, man.
yeah, no, for sure. And you know, it's one thing I've told Cotton and Ace, and I'll reiterate to you, is you know, like Eric and I had talked a bit about this on the show we did rehashing Childeberg, and you know, y'all are the future, right? When in 20 years, whenever I'm gone, I'll be dead by then. The life I've lived, I'll be lucky to make it another 10. But in 20 years, y'all are going to be the voices. Y'all are going to be, you know, the ones at like the institute and in these places that are making a big difference, writing like the articles that are making a big splash, and really spreading the word. And man, I say that I sound like David Nolan. We are evangelizing the people. Um, so yeah, but y'all are going to be spreading liberty. It's going to be y'all that are coming up that are so intelligent and very impressive young guys, and it gives me a lot of hope because my oldest son is right around y'all's age. My oldest son is 22, so I'm looking at it going, all right, well this is fucking kick ass. Like, you know, I've heard my kids talk about how they're more libertarian, and my youngest son, he doesn't even know anything about politics, and me and him are fucking text messaging back and forth about you know, economics in one lesson the other day because I sent it to him.
Great.
He asked me for a book, so I sent it to him, and he's like texting me about it, and he's already like operating in more of an agorist kind of mindset, and that's kind of the way he is, and I'm like perfectly proud of that. I'm like, go for it, brother. You know, you're going to be you're going to be the guy who gets successful out of the family. You know what I'm saying? Because you're the one looking at already 16 years old. Shit, he was already like entrepreneurial when he was like 13, 14 years old, and now he's like buying a damn vending machine and you know, trying to find a place to put it out. And I'm like, all right, go for it, dude. Do your thing, you know. And so I look at like when I look at y'all, I'm like, all right, well this is good. This is good for the future of liberty and the things that are going to be happening in the future. So I just wanted to extend that to you and let you know, like, this is something that I've been noticing, and this is why I wanted y'all all on the show like immediately after Childeberg.
That's really nice to hear, man. I really appreciate it. And I think that us young guys who are coming up now, we kind of have an advantage in that we were raised with the internet. And so we are so much better equipped to use it than the, like, not to be derogatory, but then the boomer ass establishment. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like you could see where Mitch McConnell or some blue check will post something and we'll just ratio the fuck out of him with shit posting. So then people can look and point and laugh at him, and like we're making a joke out of people just via Twitter. You know,
right.
2,000 follower accounts making a joke out of a big name politician just from making a joke out of, you know, just from making jokes or making memes of them or whatever it may be. And on top of that, we're not to blow smoke up anybody's ass, but these guys are really smart. Like, you know, Ace is incredibly smart. Cotton is incredibly smart. He went to the Mises Institute for the week-long program. Mm-hmm. I think I'm relatively smart compared to the average person. So we have that. I call it the correct level of autism because we're able to take that. We don't have much of a filter, so we'll just post things that are funny and ingratiate us with people that we wouldn't otherwise have a foot in the door with, so to speak.
Right.
And at the same time, we'll be able to hook them in with ideas. If they're interested in that, they'll stick along and kind of absorb that through osmosis, just from the shit posting and just from the joking around and the bullshitting. And I think that it's more effective than people like to think it is, just because this is going to be a really, people aren't going to like this, but this is the kind of thing that for the time, H.L. Mencken or like Rothbard, who would just joke and talk shit and be completely irreverent about politicians of their time. And, you know, whenever they're whenever you can do that to somebody, you can turn somebody into a joke. That means inherently you're taking them less seriously, which means it's going to be easier to question them. It's going to be easier to question their authority. So it is on some level just kind of fun and games, but I actually mean it in a way that I want people to kind of look at these people as a joke, the establishment, whoever it may be.
Yeah, no, you're subverting their authority, right there in front of everybody, and then it kind of gives everybody else a permission to question, and to doubt, and so, and humor has always been used in that way, it kind of allows the normie, line walker to question the authority that's being presented to them. So what y'all are doing is actually, I think that's part of the reason I love it so much and I find it so funny, is because number one, y'all are really good at it, and again, y'all are all very smart. And I think in order to have such wit and humor takes an amount of intelligence. But I mean, me and Cotton, we talked about, what's his name, Mark Fisher, for an hour the other day. I never even heard of the guy before Cotton introduced me to him, and so that's what we spent an hour doing.
I've never heard of Mark Fisher either. Who was that?
That was that's the guy who wrote Capitalist Realism. Yeah, I mean, really interesting stuff, and Cotton informed me a lot of stuff, and I listened to he sent me the audiobook so I could listen to it before we did the podcast, and I mean, it's really interesting shit. And then last night, I mean, with Ace, you can go on for days on any amount of theory and philosophy. I mean, that guy is just absolutely brilliant. And then I've listened to your podcast a couple of times, just kind of get an idea of how you're going about it. And I mean, honestly, that podcast you did with Tho Bishop, I don't know anybody that could have done a better job interviewing a guest. I thought that was one of the best podcasts I've ever heard, just in the way it was structured.
Wow, I appreciate that a lot, man. And yeah, I wanted to mention, you were on the Slurp Gang show for this past Monday, and I thought it was hilarious, and I could tell y'all had a really good time. And I thought it was awesome that your moniker for Ace is Lysander Jr. That's hilarious. That's really good. Because other people, like Reed Coverdale calls him the modern day Lysander Spooner, and he doesn't. Ace is, I say he's got like little old me syndrome. He's like, oh, I'm just a regular dude, but he's making a lot more of an impact than I think he realizes he is. Maybe he realizes it, but he's just so humble that he doesn't want to, just be like, yeah, go me, which is very commendable of him. But yeah, that guy is great. And it was awesome to meet him at Childeberg. I know you probably spoke about Childeberg 2 or 3 times, episodes on your appearances elsewhere and on this show. So I don't want to go too far into that unless that was something you wanted to discuss. But it was great to meet everybody there, Cotton and Ace in particular, who were very, very kind to me in my, beginning coming up in this liberty movement, and we're just getting started, which is crazy.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Childeberg just for a minute, because I thought it was funny when I was sitting there with Scott at Scott's tent, and I think it was either Saturday before the sun went down or it was Sunday morning, and I can't remember which, but you drove by in that little red car you were in.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, was that Nick? And and somebody goes, Nick who? And I was like, Ashley. And they're like, nah, he's not here. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I walked over.
Who said that, I wonder?
I don't remember who it was that said it.
Wow, okay.
I can't even remember who all was at, like, over there hanging with us at the moment. And hold on one second. Boogie, stop it. Go. Get in your bed. Get in bed. Go. Genoeg. Goddamn dog.
What language is that y'all speak to the dogs? I noticed that at the camp.
Afrikaans. It's
okay.
It's Beatrix's first language. Yeah, just because I spoke doesn't mean you can come back over here and start harassing me, you little rapist. No. You fucking dog. Get in your chair. Stop it. I can't tell you how many fucking interviews I've done with him, like where I would be sitting in the bed back there and he'd be crawling on my head, and I'm like, and I'm trying to like concentrate on what I'm talking about, And so finally I decided to set everything up here, and it helps sometimes, but apparently not this episode. He wants my attention right now. But yeah, no, so you drove by and I said, "Is that Nick?" And whoever it was like, no, he's not here, or no, I don't know who that is, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, okay, it looked like him." That's all, and I was just like, "All right." And then I walked over to that other campsite, and there you were sitting there with everybody. And you were the first one I recognized. I was like, "Nick," and you were like, "Who the fuck are you?"
I felt bad whenever I realized who you were, because I never seen you before. I never seen your face. And you were like, "Nick," and I was like, I think the way I asked you, I was like all meekly, like, "Hey, how do you know me?"
Yeah, it was something like that. But
and you're like, "It says Tommy." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh shit, my boy, Tommy." Yeah, so that was really cool. And you were the first. I think you were the first person that recognized me that I didn't know who you were. Well, I knew who you were, but I didn't recognize you because I never seen you before.
Right.
I hope you didn't take offense to that or anything.
No,
I had just never seen your face.
It was funny. It was funny whenever like Sherry Voluntary, like we've done episodes together. She's seen me on video before, but she didn't recognize me. She was walking right by me. She didn't recognize me until I said something to somebody, and she was like, "I know that fucking voice." You know? Yeah, and the same with Rachel Tobias. She had never seen me before, but she heard me talking to somebody, and she was like, "Oh, I know that voice," you know? And she came up and said something to me. So, no, I didn't take any offense to it because, yeah, I'd only put out like 4 videos prior to Childeberg, so it's not like it's like a big part of my marketing is putting out videos.
Yeah, I mean, we found Scott because Ace recognized his voice. We would have recognized him had we saw him, obviously. But we were walking to the car. We were about to go to the distillery where the event was being held, and he heard, like, he was like, "Did I hear Scott Horton?" Sure enough, he was over there, and he recognized Ace from Twitter and everything, and that was really cool. We got him to sign his book. As we after we like shook hands and got pictures and everything, and we were walking back to the car, I hear Scott hollering, "Where'd they go? Where's Ace?" And we go back over there, and he's like, "Hey, take a shirt," which is the shirt I'm wearing, the Libertarian Institute shirt, which he gave both of us a shirt, which is super cool.
Yeah, no, and you know, like you said, Ace is so humble, and he's got like such a sweet disposition about him.
He's precious, dude.
Yeah,
he is fucking precious.
He almost comes across as fragile. You know what I'm saying? And it's like we have to like coddle this gem that we have before us, you know. And that's kind of how I feel about him. Like he's like the little brother of the group. I don't care if he's older than anybody. He's the little brother of the group. You know, everybody's got to watch Ace's back. You know.
I get you. Yeah, I was telling people like, and this comes off wrong. I don't mean it to be that way, but I was like, he's precious. Like, he's just a beautiful human being.
Yeah, he's just a sweetheart of a man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know,
it was so good to meet.
Yeah, there's no other way to describe him other than just an absolute sweetheart. You know, and I love talking to him, and like we sit there and he and I get going, and we could probably talk for hours. I mean, I love that guy. So, but yeah, it was so great meeting all of y'all though, man. And I was really, like I said, really super impressed with all of you. I knew you were funny from Twitter, but then to get to sit down and talk with all of y'all a little bit, I realized how absolutely intelligent all of you were. And,
yeah, I've been. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, and that was just, I came across out of Childeberg like just on cloud 9. It was such a white pill to meet all of you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say that I got a couple of comments from doing Reed Coverdale's show and from doing Joshua Smith's show recently, where people were like, "Wow, Nick's actually kind of smart." I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that was in question. It's like they just know me as the eternal shit poster, the living meme, you know.
Yeah,
whatever it is. It is what it is.
Fuck, I didn't know I had a reputation to uphold. So we were talking a little bit beforehand about COVID and what's been going on with COVID, all the latest revelations, especially after a year of denying that it could have even possibly been created in a lab. oh Lord, guess what? You know, so let's jump us into that. Get into it.
Well, the problems that I have with the changing of the narrative is that people were losing their livelihoods because they were straying from what was at the time the mainstream narrative. And even if somebody was, like, let's say somebody was wrong and they were wrong in earnest, like they weren't wrong like trying to spread misinformation maliciously, then even if they got caught up in that mix and they were just postulating, oh, maybe this is something that was worked on by scientists and they just spitball that idea out there, they could have gotten all their shit taken down from all the major platforms. And now it's coming out like let's steel man, let's say, okay, this person was just wrong. Even if now we know that they were right at the time, they were thought to be wrong then. I think now we know that that's not the case. I think now we know they had an agenda to uphold. But let's just say at the time they genuinely thought that these people talking about this lab thing were incorrect. That doesn't mean you kick them off of the platform or take away their ability to make money because they were incorrect about something. People are incorrect about things more than half at the time, if I had to guess, because everything's always changing. There's always new information that's coming out about these things. It's not like a static thing. It's a very dynamic situation. And it's a new virus. We know that it's a new virus. So naturally, whenever something new comes out, there's going to be new information coming out about it weekly or even daily at sometimes.
Right.
So now there's people that are coming out and saying, oh yeah, it's the mainstream like narrative is kind of accepted that, yeah, it seems like this is probably more likely a man-made, or at least, well, I guess man-made is the only way to say it, because there's no other, whether they took something that came from nature, which is probably what they did, is take something that came from nature, some sort of other coronavirus, the flu and the cold are coronaviruses. It's the structure of the virus. I think is what it's referenced,
right.
And screwed with it and put different things in it, like parts of the HIV virus. And I'm not going to speak on that because I'm not a virologist. I have no idea what I'm talking about here, but this is what I've been reading from people that do know what they're talking about. This thing looks like it was tampered with by people, and that is now the mainstream narrative. And Facebook recently changed their policy. They changed the terms and services that you will not get kicked off for quote unquote misinformation about COVID regarding this lab leak thing. Mm-hmm. So they've admitted they were wrong without admitting that they were wrong. You know what I mean? They tacitly admitted that they were wrong. Now, are they going to let people back on who have been kicked off for saying it back in, June of 2020? Probably not. I would guess no.
No, it's like legalizing marijuana. Those that are already in jail, they get to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that's most heinous about this is, like I said, even if somebody was just wrong, like you could be wrong about something. It's okay to be wrong. There's no way to say that somebody was spreading misinformation if they were just spitballing an idea that they heard from some scientist. There was a scientist, oh man, I can't remember his name, a French guy, a Nobel laureate, I believe.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. God, I can't think of his name either. I know exactly who you're talking about, though.
He said this in the very beginning. He said, this is a weird virus. It doesn't seem natural, and we don't have anything like this in nature. It probably is something that they were messing with in these labs. And everybody discredited him. But if you heard somebody like that, who is by definition an expert, talking about this, and you just posted a comment on Facebook, you could have gotten kicked off for that. Even if you were just spitballing with people in the comments about something you heard an expert say. So for them now to come back and say, nah, this is okay to talk about now, is really, really crazy. And I don't know how they're going to handle it going forward. I think what's going to happen is they're just going to pretend like it was never something that they denied in the first place. It was something that they never held that as an unacceptable position to have in the first place. That's how they're going to act about it at this point going forward, is my guess.
Yeah.
That's how it always happens.
The Nobel Prize winner you were speaking of is Luc Montagnier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and just to kind of back you up a little bit and kind of co-sign on what you were saying. Yes, what it appears was going on here with this virus is they pulled a virus from a bat that lives 600 miles away from Wuhan, and they isolated this virus, and they began to do gain of function research on the virus, which means what they were trying to do is make the virus extremely potent and extremely like easily spreadable, and they do this in order to get to preemptively create vaccines.
Yeah, to anticipate a really bad virus.
Right, exactly. So what it appears like they were doing was they were trying to make the virus bad so they could create a badass vaccine, and the virus got loose or infected somebody in some way, whatever happened. And so that's the way it looks. Yeah, so I think you're right about that. And yes, like when you get into the way that censorship and the media has been handling the virus, it's hard to say it was anything other than we have to own Trump. And then after he was out of office, then we can kind of ease our way into admitting that he was right the entire time, right? But last year at this time, it had to be, we have to beat Trump in the election, so anything he says is wrong, you know? And I mean, that goes on to what you were telling me earlier.
Yeah. And I got a headline right here on site. Well, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this seems like, a weird website. So I'm gonna go to another one, livemint.com. And well, I'm getting a few different headlines about Luc Montagnier, his about how he's wrong about the lab leak. And they're talking about how he was claiming that it had particles of the HIV virus, which it does. They found out that it does, and that was discovered in the Fauci emails. I think that people already knew that before.
Yes.
But yeah, he was completely written off as a kook for saying what he said. Now, was he 100% right? Probably not. Nobody is. Nobody ever is. But for the fact, he was completely thrown under the bus as a kook, and now he's been kind of vindicated in the fact that he was at least right in some capacity.
The fact of the matter is, he's looking at what's happening before his eyes. He's reading the research that's coming out, and he's saying, okay, this is what it appears to me. This is how I see it. I've only been doing this my entire fucking life. I am an expert in this goddamn field. And by reading the journals that are coming out on the virus, this is what I see. Okay, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry. There's no reason the guy should be thrown under the bus. The fact of the matter is, this became a political football. And it should have never become a political football. It should have always been science, health, and just stayed in that field. But as soon as Trump opened his mouth, suddenly the libs have to try to own Trump and make him look like a fool. And by doing that, they shut down businesses all over the world, especially in the United States. People lost their livelihoods. There are people that are going to be losing their houses now because of foreclosures coming down the pike. And all these things are going to be happening as a result, so that they could own Donald Trump, so they can make Trump look like a fool.
Yeah. To segue into another example of this is the whole idea with hydroxychloroquine, which is something that he was first proposing. Trump was first proposing. I don't know who was in his ear telling him about this. I know he didn't know about it because he's not a medical expert, and he's probably not an expert on anything but some certain business things. But he was talking about hydroxychloroquine in the very beginning, and he was. Yep. I remember seeing people saying that the reason he was doing that was because he had stake in some company that created hydroxychloroquine or manufactured it, as a medicine, like some brand name.
Right. Yeah.
But now the headlines are all over saying that hydroxychloroquine, I got one right here, hydroxychloroquine and zinc treatments increase COVID survival rate by almost 3 times. So in effect, what happened here, now let me go into it a second. So it says that it's 255 cases, which isn't a whole lot, but it's no small number. It says here, let me pull down here. Once again, it turns out Trump was right. That kind of sounds like a biased article, but if it's true, it's true, right? I thought it was a malaria drug. Yeah, the anti-malarial drug
Oh, yeah.
hydroxychloroquine, along with zinc, could increase the coronavirus survival rate by as much as nearly 200%, 200% if distributed at higher doses to ventilated patients with severe version of the illness. Uh, so yeah, the study concluded researchers found cumulative doses of two drugs, HCQ and AZM. I'm guessing AZM is the zinc supplement that they're referencing earlier, were above a certain level. Patients had a survival rate 2.9 times higher than other patients. So this was conducted on a study of 255 patients, which is a decent sample size for a medical study, as far as I am aware. But now, if it improves survival, effectively what happened was, to own Trump and to get him out of office, they let people die by limiting the effective treatments available to people.
Well, I don't know if that was to own Trump. All right, so here's what hydroxychloroquine does. It acts as what they call an ionophore, right? Mm. So what it does is it makes your cells, it opens them up so they absorb more zinc. So that's why they say you take it alongside zinc. You can also take Cure Certain, which is a supplement you can just go buy on over the counter. Mm-hmm. All right, and it acts the same way. But here's what I think. In order to get the emergency medical release for a vaccine without FDA approval, you can't have a treatment. And so they couldn't admit that hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin actually worked, or they wouldn't have gotten the vaccine out on the market. And therefore, and hydroxychloroquine is or ivermectin, they're no longer under patent. So anybody could have made it. You can
get it for super cheap. It's not
exactly.
Big Pharma's out of the picture. That's right.
Big Pharma would have never made any money, but they made a ton of money on these fucking vaccines.
Oh yeah, and you know what really bugs me about this whole thing is that people who were supposed to be good on this, notably leftists, who are normally decent about big pharma, these are some of the people that that realize that giving people all these pills is part of the reason why marijuana is illegal is because people are all on opiates and shit like that, right?
Right.
Part of it. I know there's more to it than that, but it's something that leftists are decent at recognizing most of the time, is that the effect of big pharma. Right. But no, take the vaccine, bigot. Right. It's incredibly infuriating.
I told one leftist one time, I was talking to her, and I said, she said something about the Moderna vaccine, which I want to get into in a second. I want to bring that up to you because I don't know if you know all this shit about Moderna, but she said something about the Moderna vaccine, and I said, fuck big pharma. She said, yeah, normally, but this is different.
Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Wow.
But okay, so here's the thing with Moderna. Prior to this mRNA vaccine that they developed, they had never successfully developed any vaccine whatsoever. And if you really want to get into it, they're 50% owned by the NIH.
Aren't those the people that were funding the Wuhan lab?
Yes. Yeah, that's who. Fauci is the president of the NIH. Yes.
Something tells me there's more at play here than them just wanting to keep people healthy.
Right.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So whenever you say they never successfully developed a vaccine, is that because the ones they were putting out were shit and were causing problems, or because they had just So they had a bad track record.
Yeah, they had never been approved by the FDA.
So this emergency push through warp speed or whatever really helped them out.
Exactly.
And the Moderna is, from what I understand, I just pulled it up. I just looked up Moderna vaccine. It hit news on Google. And
well, in this it plainly shows you exactly how fucking stupid Donald Trump was, right? Because you would have never gotten Operation Warp Speed would have never been necessary had there been a treatment. So not only is Donald Trump out in the public eye pushing Operation Warp Speed, he's also pushing hydroxychloroquine. So which is it, Donald Trump? Which do you want? Do you want there to be a treatment, or do you want there to be a vaccine? Because you're only going to get one of these things.
Yeah, and the funny thing, just to because I shit on progressives or leftists or whatever, now to shit on conservatives and MAGA people, the same people who were bragging about Trump for, oh, we wouldn't have gotten this vaccine if it weren't for the way the Trump administration handled it, blah blah blah, Operation Warp Speed. But now they're the ones who were,
They're like, I'm not taking that shit.
Yeah, disproportionately pointing out the negative effects of the vaccinations that are out there. It's like it makes no sense. COVID has broke people's brains, or maybe it hasn't broke people's brains. It's just really highlighted how stupid these partisan retards really are.
Donald Trump is what broke everybody's brain.
That's probably right. Yeah,
this is just amplifying. This is just amplifying the diagnosis, not diagnosis, but whatever.
It's no coincidence that this all started around the time Harambe was killed.
Stop it, Nia, lay. This fucking
dog. So when you mentioned the Moderna vaccine, something that I had been seeing in the news is that it's causing heart inflammation in young, healthy men.
Yeah.
And an article on Reuters right now is that this is the first sentence, which the way that it's worded it gives me pause. A higher than expected number of young men have experienced heart inflammation after their second dose of the mRNA COVID-19 shots from Pfizer/BioNTech and Moderna. So there's an expected amount of heart inflammation whenever you take these shots. Is that like built into the deal? Because I didn't never know about that. Never when I was getting my DTaP or TDAP or whatever shots I got when I was getting into school, did I remember them saying something about you may experience heart inflammation.
Yeah, no, but that, I mean, that's the thing with all these new drugs they're coming out with. They're getting so experimental with these things. I mean, look at the side effects of all these things. I remember reading. I saw a commercial a while back, and it was a drug for what is that little skin
psoriasis?
Yeah, and then like side effects may cause suicidal thoughts. I was like, what the fuck do I need?
I'd rather have fucked up skin than want to kill myself. Frankly,
like what the fuck kind of medicine are you giving me?
And what kind of shit does it have to do to your brain to make you have, like, it's a skin disease? It probably messes with your hormones, because I think psoriasis has something to do with hormonal stuff. You find that with like acne medicine or like whatever the other skin rosacea medicine, which it messes with your hormones, because that's kind of in part what affects skin conditions. But man, at a certain point, I'd rather have like itchy red blotches on my skin than have suicidal thoughts. That's fucked up.
Yeah. And I mean, there was another one. It was something for it was for constipation, and then the side effects is like may cause severe diarrhea, like ulcers, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, like what happened to the old school suppository? Or just soaking in a warm bath for an hour. Like, what the fuck's going on here?
Drink some water and a teaspoon of castor oil or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like, what the fuck are y'all trying to put into people, man? Like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it is. And the comparison I always make to these over-incentivized programs due to the federal, the government's, the way they dole out money to certain things, the best comparison I can make that's really easy to understand is corn subsidies leading to high fructose corn syrup being in everything, right? It's obvious. Any libertarian knows this, and it's really obvious and easy for somebody who's not a libertarian to understand. They over-incentivize corn production. That corn has to go somewhere. So now corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, which we're finding out is really bad for you, is in everything. It's in everything that instead of natural sugar, which sugar is not really good for you to begin with. But I think high fructose corn syrup is probably worse because it's much more of a processed thing, than just drying up sugar cane.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, have you ever like tried like a soda that was made with like cane sugar?
The Mexican Coke?
Yeah.
Yes, it's like, so much better.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so why don't we do this?
Like the corn subsidies, man.
It's not as bad for me, and like whatever. But you're right. And what's weird about the corn subsidies is strange because it's kind of like a reverberation or a reaction to oil subsidies, because what was going on back in the day is people were making like alcohol, and they had cars that could run off of alcohol back in the day, right? And And so basically the US government subsidized big oil, and therefore all the car dealerships went to using big oil, and then they reacted as all these corn producers and farmers started going out of business. They reacted by giving all these subsidies to these corn industry and putting ethanol in their fuel, which fucks up your engine. So it's like, what the fuck, man? Y'all just can't get anything right.
Well, yeah, what I was getting at is they've over-incentivized the production of certain medicines with the way big pharma and insurance companies all work and all that shit. It's just a giant money-making machine. And so, yeah, to your point about how these medicines seem to be getting weirder and weirder with worse and worse side effects, it's like, yeah, because they're coming out with so many different ones because they got that sweet, government contract or whatever it may be. They got the insurance, which is required to cover certain things, and they have to come out with a certain amount of medicines for certain things. Like the way that it's like a big pharma. I don't like the term big pharma. I like the term military industrial complex because that's like it's really to the point. Big pharma is kind of I don't know why I don't like the term big pharma. I just don't care for it. But whenever you say it, people know what you mean. So I guess it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I really don't know a better way of communicating what I'm talking about.
I thought about it for a second, but I couldn't come up with anything. So I was like, whatever. Big pharma is fine.
Pharmaceutical companies, but I mean, you're saying the same thing. But
but it is a gigantic industrial complex, involving the government and insurance companies and manufacturers of medicine and everything that entails. So, yeah, it's just as much of a machine tangled web of statism that the military industrial complex is in terms of government contracts and fascism, literal fascism, corporate and government cooperation. That's what fascism is. So, I mean, it's just as bad. It probably causes just as many deaths, if not more, than the military industrial complex. And it's just as wasteful and harmful to the economy.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'm thinking is these patents are only good for 10 years, 5 years,
7 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So what it looks like to me is they're just keep coming out with new medications.
They have
so they can keep jacking the prices up and keep making that money. Because once that patent's up, they have to have something else to replace that income. Because now you got all these smaller companies, or these companies in Mexico or Canada or whatever, making this exact same product under a different name for a lot cheaper.
Right. Yeah. A generic brand.
Right.
Yeah. And a good example, I don't remember exactly the numbers here, but a perfect example of how these patent laws, specifically with regards to medicine, really screw over the regular folk is with EpiPens. And EpiPens, they extended the patent for EpiPens to 50 years or something like that?
Some shit like that.
Yeah. So now that's why EpiPens are $200, $300. And if you can make a generic EpiPen, like an Equate brand Walmart EpiPen, you probably get it for $10 or less. So imagine if there was one manufacturer of Benadryl, diphenhydramine. You can get a bottle of 100 for $4 at Walmart. Just imagine, think about if only one manufacturer could create that drug Benadryl or diphenhydramine. How expensive do you think it could be? It's very simple economics here, but people don't seem to get it, and people think that the fact that the EpiPen is so expensive is a failure of the free market. It's like, okay, I have no time for you. I'm sorry, you're just stupid. Right?
Yeah. Or they also believe that stiletto Crocs is a creation of the free market.
Oh God, I saw that too. That NPR article.
I was like, leave it to the media company living off of tax dollars to worry about free market.
That's right.
Seriously. And you don't know anything about the fucking free market. You've never competed with anybody in your life.
You're literally Pravda.
Right.
And the one of the favorite reaction to that was a tweet by Dr. Jonathan Newman, who I've had on my show. He's with the Mises Institute, and he said the difference between stiletto Crocs and NPR is I get the choice not to pay for stiletto Crocs. Right. Which is that's pretty much all you need to know. NPR is on the government dole. They're literally just, that's fascist or even socialist. I mean, I don't know what you would define it as. I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, they're a public broadcasting company gonna bitch about the free market. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. If it was for the free market, I wouldn't have to be doing a podcast to compete with you fucking assholes.
I don't know, man. We'd have to compete. A rising tide raises all ships.
Right. But no, what is that drug they give for diabetes? I can't. It's slipping my mind.
You mean insulin?
Yeah, that's another one like the EpiPen that
Mm-hmm.
like the price is just sky high and it should cost like what they were saying it was something like should be like $6 for every like $100 that a diabetic spends on insulin. It's
Yeah.
just insane the way that they jack these prices up.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, a good leftist should recognize that, even if it's not the fact that they are venerating the free market and they're venerating what they would consider to be capitalist or right wing. Well, they think that that is capitalism, but even if they don't have to venerate right wing economics. They don't have to be like saying, "Oh yeah, Mises was right about this," to notice that this corporate government cooperation, aka fascism, is what's causing the rise or the high prices of these life-saving drugs like insulin or like adrenaline and epipens.
Trump broke them, man. I mean, like you saw it whenever. That was one good thing that Trump was attempting to do, was to get insulin, to allow insulin sold from like Mexico and Canada to lower the prices.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and they were bitching about it, and I was just like, he broke your fucking brains, people. Like he broke you. It's one of the most insane things I'd ever seen in my life. Was he's arguing your argument here? He's making your argument that to stop getting it from these American big pharmaceutical companies and to start getting it from these other places that have generic brands that work just as well for a lot less money, and you were arguing that he's wrong. You know, and it's just like, this is the exact same argument you were making 2 years ago.
Yeah, and progressives, I've been shitting on them a lot lately because they are either witless dupes or, malevolent creators of the worst things, the worst policies of American hegemony, whether that is the foreign policy, the corporate fascism that we live under, or, whatever it may be. Whether they know it or not, that's what they advocate for. So, if they want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, guess what? You only have big corporations paying people money now. You only have big corporations that people are going to be able to work for. You think mom and pop barbershop can pay somebody $15 an hour to clean up after somebody gets a haircut? You think Pizza Joe's down the street can pay $15 an hour for a kid to fold boxes and sweep the floors or whatever? You're out of your mind. You're only going to have big corporations. So whether they're witless dupes or malevolent, creatures that are trying to get this done, that's what they're accomplishing. That's what all their economic policy prescriptions, all they accomplish is what they claim to hate, which is fascism and quote unquote capitalism, which is their definition of capitalism is our definition of corporatism. And that's why I don't really care for the term capitalism. I just say free or freed markets. But
I like to add the D because people don't know what you're talking about, especially if you're writing it out like on Twitter or Facebook, and if you put the D at the end, they're kind of it makes them take a step back and question.
What do you mean? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Because you're not saying, because they'll say, well, this is a free market, but if you're saying I want freed markets, then they're like, wait, what does that mean? Yeah,
right. Yeah,
and I got that from Gary Chartier.
Mm-hmm. They have to grapple with the fact that your assertion is that they are not currently free.
Right.
So yeah. So if you say the free market, they're gonna think that your operating theory or your operating assumption is that it is free and whatever. But if you say the freed market, then they're gonna look at that and on a surface level realize your operating assumption is that right now the market is choked nearly to death and it is not nearly free. So that is a good point. That's something that people should do is write out in the freed market or freed markets with the past tense free. That is a nice little nuance you can add to things to add some flavor to the conversation. Hell yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I ran into, what was that? 2019, I guess it was. I ran into the book Markets Not Capitalism.
That's Gary Chartier, and I don't remember the co-author. I'm sorry.
There's several. If I remember right, there was several people that wrote essays for that. I had interviewed Sheldon Richman about it,
Yeah.
because he advocates the same thing. And whenever I was talking to Scott about it one day, Scott was like, "Oh, you're a Richmonian," and I was like, "Okay."
I
I'll take
love how
it.
everybody has a Blankian thing.
Yeah.
There's Misesian, Rothbardian. I'm a Bob Murphyian.
I can't wait. I can't wait till I meet the first Asian.
Oh, yeah, they'll be them. They will.
They
Yeah,
will.
yeah. So the co-author I'm thinking of for The Markets Not Capitalism is Charles W. Johnson. So
okay.
yeah,
Charles.
that's
Johnson,
who I was thinking of. Just to give credit where it's necessarily due.
Right.
But yeah, I have that book. Ace actually sent me that book in an ebook. I need to read it.
You haven't read it yet?
I have not.
Oh, dude, you'll love it.
My reading list is so long, dude. I bought so many books when I first discovered all this shit that I haven't read. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks because I can do that while I'm at work and doing my job.
Yeah.
But I need to get better about reading because some of the books that I have are not on audiobook.
Yeah, I don't read as much philosophy. I've been saying this for quite a while. I neglect philosophy a lot of times in favor of history, and it's just because I have such a fucking obsession with the CIA. It's just like that. I'm just like, I read all kinds of shit about the CIA and the people that were former CIA agents and, you know, former directors of the CIA, and I read all that shit. Like Stephen Kinzer
sponsors,
is amazing.
The sponsor of this show is the CIA, waving their rainbow flag. We'll bomb another country. We're gonna intel to another, you know, whatever. You get the joke. I'm sorry, I fucked up.
we bomb with equity.
That's right. We have a transgender bomber pilot, so you know we're in the right. We're on the right side of history, Tommy.
CIA is trans bombing Iraq, and Nick is bombing this joke. So.
Yeah, I fucked that up really bad. I'm sorry, everyone listening. I call the CIA the Crack Institute of America, unironically. That's what I refer to them as.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Or they did, but they'll never, you know. I mean, they've been around for, what, since the 50s? And
40s,
nothing they've...
40...
Was it the 40s?
47 or 48 was whenever... Damn. Yeah, whenever Truman signed the National Security Act. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Truman isn't I'm gonna say underrated, but underrated in a bad way. Like
he doesn't get
he doesn't get the hate he deserves. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's because he followed like Woodrow Wilson and, you know,
FDR.
It's like
two worst presidents.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Truman is the only one to have ever dropped nuclear bombs on anybody.
Mm-hmm. And
even when the Joint Chiefs of Staff told him not to.
That's right, man. Eisenhower and all the generals who knew anything at the time.
Smedley, Butler, all of them.
Yeah. Great article by Mises.org on it. And surely I know the antiwar.com and Libertarian Institute, they've written articles on that for sure. I just saw one recently come up about this on the Libertarian Institute. I don't remember the title of it. But anyway, I have a couple of things pulled up. We really did sidebar. I don't want to hijack your show, but I wanted to talk about this if you don't mind. We were talking about this before we recorded. Just further proof of how deep the big pharma thing goes is the CDC. This is the headline I have right here. CDC is limiting reviews of reported breakthrough COVID infections to severe cases. And what they're referring to as breakthrough COVID infections is an infection after somebody's been vaccinated.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they are limiting the numbers. They're basically going to say, not count that as a case if somebody has mild symptoms, or they're at least not going to give it a second thought if they have mild symptoms as opposed to having severe symptoms, which part of the propaganda about the vaccinations, frankly, it's propaganda, is that if you get it, it's going to lessen the severity of the virus if you catch the virus, if you've already been vaccinated. So to reiterate, because I just fucked that sentence all up, what they're saying the vaccine will do is not necessarily that you will not catch the virus, but if you do catch it, your symptoms will be less severe than otherwise they would be.
So it's like every other medication. It masks the symptoms and not doesn't fight the virus.
Sure. I don't know how they can test that, though. I don't know how they could possibly know that, because I had COVID and I barely had any symptoms at all. My wife had COVID and she barely had any symptoms at all. Plenty of people have had it and have not had severe symptoms. That's like 80% to 90% of people who had it were fine.
Right.
Had kind of a cold, right? Cold to flu.
So much of the focus of my podcast is to point out abuses of power and how bad things have gotten and the direction in which we're heading as a society. And it can be a real black pill. I've partnered up with Richard Grove to offer my listeners an opportunity to sign up to his Autonomy Course. The Autonomy Course is designed for people looking for solutions, people that want to shape their own future, people that are not willing to be at the behest of large corporations or the United States government or the banking system. The Autonomy Course is designed for those of you who wish to have complete control of the reins of your life, who are looking to be successful, to thrive and not just survive, to provide for your family by utilizing your existing skills and learning how to market and sell those skills in order to be your own boss, or learn new skills in order to leverage that into a new career opportunity. So if there's a job out there you've been trying to get or you've been wishing you could get, but you just don't have the skills for it, the Autonomy Course is the place for you to start, to learn how to land that position, to learn how to market yourself better, to gain confidence, and to be surrounded by a community of like-minded people that will encourage you and help you along the way. So use my affiliate links and go check out the Autonomy Course. It could be right for you. Well, and you know what they're not talking about, or they talk about asymptomatic people, but what they don't talk about are immune people. Because, all right, my dad had it, and like I told you, he was sick for 30 days, right? My mom never tested positive, not once.
Yeah.
You know?
Or something that was brought up. Tom Woods talked about this a bunch with I think he's Swedish. Let me get that right. His name is Martin Koldorf. And he is a Swedish professor of medicine. And he was saying, like, some of these Asian countries like Japan or South Korea or whatever it may be over there in East Asia, they regularly get coronaviruses, like SARS-type viruses. So that might kind of prime your body and give you antibodies to fight something like this coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, whatever it's called, that you may have kind of a predisposed immunity, right? You may be predisposed to fighting this thing better if you've had various different viruses in the past. Now, I don't know how it works for like the typical seasonal cold over here in America. I get one every year, sometimes twice a year. I get a cold, so maybe that's why because I get it, my wife gets it pretty much every year. So I don't know if that's why I've had such mild symptoms. I don't know. There's no way for us to ever know that. I don't think. But it's something to think about. And that's why I remember Woods always brings up Japan and how back in the beginning they were saying that, oh, Japan is like, they're going to be screwed, and there were doomsday about Japan in April. And regardless of the fact that they were wearing masks, because they were open, they weren't really closing down a whole lot. They weren't doing the lockdown thing, but they were wearing masks, but they were saying, oh, the masks aren't good enough, they're going to be screwed. And then like when it started to come out that they were fine, they were better off than the average country, then the narrative became, well, they were wearing masks the whole time. But that's not what they said whenever they were predicting bodies upon bodies piled up in the streets like it's the Black Plague, right?
Right.
And what Koldorf and Wood spoke about is just the idea that maybe they just have a natural immunity to coronaviruses, which this is still technically a coronavirus, despite being screwed with by scientists, allegedly, for legal reasons, allegedly. And some of these Asian folks that always get exposed to these viruses or similar virus. I don't know if viruses is the plural or viri or what, but I'm gonna keep saying viruses because it sounds more natural.
That does sound more natural.
Ironically, viruses sounds more natural. We're talking about an unnatural virus. But anyway, the point I'm making here is that was kind of a kook theory back in the beginning, but it seems to have been sort of vindicated, at least in practice. I don't know if we'll ever figure out if that was the case, that they have sort of similar enough antibodies that could fight this virus off from the various viruses they've had in the past. Who knows? But it seems plausible to me from an outsider's perspective.
So here's what I heard, and it. I heard this from a couple of people, and I can't remember who it was. But they were saying like what's it called, the PSR test, where they go up your nose and they do the nasal
PCR
swab?
test.
PCR test, where they do the nasal swab. They're saying like, okay, this particular test is not created to identify this virus in particular. What it's doing is it's giving you a broad scale, and it's saying, yes, there was coronavirus available. So if you had even a common cold, it would register as a coronavirus. So therefore they would say that you diagnose you as having COVID-19, even though all you had really was the common cold. So this could be actually explain all of the asymptomatic people, right? They could have never actually had contact or gotten COVID-19 and just been carrying your average common cold coronavirus, got that PCR test. PCR test comes back positive for antibodies for coronavirus. And you never, but they're counting it on. And when I talked to that guy who was a respiratory therapist, he was telling me, he's like, all that shit you heard about people being decapitated in car accidents and being tested after they were dead, and fucking getting diagnosed with having coronavirus, all that shit's true. Because these hospitals were getting like $15,000 per patient or whatever. So
yeah. Yeah, and anytime you incentivize a behavior, people are going to act on that behavior.
Right.
It's very simple. People still don't understand it. Bastiat talked about the shit. Like
everything is economics. Everything is economics. Like seriously,
yeah.
You can break everything down by knowing basic economics. You can look at everything that's going on and be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense.
I think that's why I have a better perspective on things than a lot of people do. Like in the normie world, just because I know I have a surface level, and I'm not gonna say anything I don't know, but like I have a surface level understanding of the Austrian school. Like I know about certain things that a lot of people don't know about because nobody knows economics, right?
Right.
So I'm able to look at things from a perspective from economics. And if you incentivize a behavior, on the margin, there will be more people that act on that behavior or try to achieve that which is incentivized.
Right.
And in this case, we're talking about the more COVID positive patients that you had in a hospital, the more funding you would get for relief, and you would get more equipment, and you would get more supplies, and et cetera, et cetera. So
and you're talking about an industry that is getting completely hammered by Medicaid and Medicare, right? Because Medicaid and Medicare only pay out about 80% of what they agree to pay out. They don't even pay out the entire amount. So like, all right, so let's say there's like, you get a procedure done. Let's say it's an MRI, right? And if you're going to pay cash for it, you're going to pay like $5,000-$6,000. Well, typically it wouldn't be that much money. The reason that you paying cash for it without insurance are paying $5,000 or $6,000 is because whenever Medicaid or Medicare gets the damn bill for $3,000, they only pay $1,800, and they're like, "That's it. That's all you're getting from us." And so they have to roll those costs over. So whenever you look at it like a night in the hospital, right, and it costs like people like $10,000 to $14,000 for one night in the hospital, and you're like, Jesus fucking Christ! Now, wonder these people want, Medicare for all or whatever. the reason it's doing that is because of the government programs that only pay out a percentage of what is owed to the hospitals. So the hospitals have to roll over all this money to the other patients, which jacks the prices up for the other patients. So now the hospitals have an actual opportunity to get out ahead, in one way, shape, or form. You think they're not going to fucking take their opportunity to make some money?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good example. Like you have if you look at medical bills, an IV bag is like $700, and it's literally just a bag of water with a syringe hooked up to it. Like, come on. Yeah. And of course that's capitalism's fault. That's the free market's fault, right? Yeah. You wonder why you make a bunch of socialists whenever your cronyist corporatist model puts people in debt and ruins their lives. You wonder why they're socialists, because they don't get taught what free markets really are, right?
There's a big part of me that that just screams out, like, just step back and let the socialists fight these fucking corporatists and just watch. Just watch from afar. Just let them do their thing. It's like they say something to you on Twitter, just go, "Oh, okay, buddy, good luck, man," and just like go on. I'm not even going to argue with you anymore. Have fun. I hope y'all fucking kick their ass, because like there will be more of y'all dead than us, and we'll be alive and we'll be able to like take control of this shit.
We gotta pick up the pieces and build back better.
Yeah.
Ooh, topical. Yeah, and the whole thing. What were we even talking about? We were talking about the way, extra funding for hospitals who had COVID positive patients. So yeah, and the whole PCR test, they were using that as, they were giving people that died within a certain amount of time after testing positive for COVID through the PCR test. Now, whether that was from getting in a car accident, overdosing on drugs, anybody that got submitted to a hospital was given a COVID test. They got the swab. So if they tested positive, despite the fact that the virus had nothing to do with their death, they would get counted as a COVID death. So what do our numbers actually look like? We're never going to know. We're obviously never going to know. But the official death toll, we already know, is drastically inflated by just that alone. Because how many people die of car accidents every day? How many people die of other causes every day? So this whole, the dramatized version of it is that we have, I don't even know what the death toll is right now. Let me see what it is. COVID-19 deaths.
Yeah, last I heard a couple of weeks ago was at 500,000 they were counting, but I don't know what it's at today.
Let's see. Yeah, last I heard the big number was 500 grand. So yeah, right now we're at 599,000. That's what it's saying. So 33.4 million cases and 599,000 deaths. Now, 3.8 million worldwide.
You said 34 million?
33.4 million cases.
33.4 million cases. So you're talking about 1/10 of the entire population.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that. That all this freak out, this whole panic over 1/10 of the population getting sick, and what is 500,000 of 33.4 million is like 1% of them actually like dying, and some of them not even dying of the virus, dying with the virus.
When they had the virus. And like 90-something% of the people that died of the virus had another condition, whether it be diabetes, which we have a lot of that here in the States, whether it be cancer. So it sounds, and this is something that's a difficult conversation to have, but we have to have it, is some of the people that died of legitimately died of COVID-19 were probably going to be dead within the year anyway.
Probably.
It was cancer patients that were on the way out, older folks who were in their 80s or 90s. A lot of them, the average death for a time, I don't know what this number is like anymore, but for a time, the average age of death of coronavirus was older than the average life expectancy in the country.
Right.
So a lot of old folks were dying from it, which is it's not something to write off and say, oh, that's okay. It's just saying we need to have some perspective on what the cost of the actions we took for this virus were.
Well, we
You know, and
also need to say that Cuomo killed a lot of fucking old people.
yeah, lied about the numbers and got a book deal for it. That's
And so
scum.
did Gretchen Whitmer. Nobody talks about the amount of people that with COVID that she put in nursing homes up in Michigan because
Yeah.
everybody's worried about Cuomo sexually harassing some 19-year-old chick or something.
Yeah, I've been posting about this on Twitter. I'm not really a religious person, but I hope hell is real, so these people burn for eternity. I really do, man. It's
Right.
it's so disgusting that these people could just do what they do. The guy forced people who were positive and had the virus back into the nursing homes,
And they
where
were telling him, you're going to kill
Yeah.
people. You can't
Yeah,
do this. You're going to kill
it's-
people.
and
Yeah.
and it happened, and then they lied about the deaths, and they underestimated, or not underestimated, they covered up half of the deaths.
Right.
It's incredible, and he's still in office right now.
Yeah.
That man should be in Guantanamo Bay. That man should be in Abu Ghraib right now.
Right.
You know, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get anything you have pulled, but that man should not be walking a free man in power anymore. It's
Right.
pathetic and disgusting.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I agree with you. And it's him, and like I said, Gretchen Whitmer, she's just as guilty. You know, they've kind of given her a pass because the FBI targeted her for a kidnapping scheme to blame on the Boogs. But, you know.
Yeah,
So-
that was totally not an op.
Well,
Right?
it was when 7 of the 9 guys were FBI informants. Like,
That's exactly right. They're not even good at playing pretend.
what was that? What's that book? Terror Factory. I think it's called Terror Factory, and it's about all of the potential terrorist attacks, like 200 or 300 different potential terrorist attacks that were stopped by the FBI. Come to find out, with investigative journalism, they figured out that they were all perpetrated by the FBI, so the FBI could stop them, so they could get more funding.
Of course, it always winds up that way. Like half of the, or more than half of the time, probably 75% of the time, there's some sort of dissident or insurrectionist type of movement. There's a sizable chunk of them that are FBI informants or CIA agents, literally CIA agents. It's incredible, but nobody cares, and it just moves on, and they get more funding, and they have more and more power, and it's just what it is.
Like Magnus. I mean, everybody knows Magnus is a Fed, but he's just a cool Fed. That's why we have him
Really?
on the show.
You think so?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I thought you were...
I'm fucking around. Just
Oh,
in
you've
case-
had him on.
Yes, I've had him on. I love Magnus. He's a great dude.
Yeah. I like that guy.
I was fucking around just in case he was listening.
Yeah.
No, see what happened was Alex Jones had 2 Boog boys on. One was Magnus and one was some other guy. And the other guy was openly calling for revolution and violence. And
Yeah.
Alex Jones was just arguing with him. And Magnus came on like a week later and was like, no, man, we're peaceful. What we're saying is this, blah, 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 blah. And Alex Jones called him a Fed.
That's
And
hilarious.
so the joke is that Magnus is the Fed, not the guy calling for violence.
Which it always is. The one
It's
who's
always the guy calling for
like
violence.
the agent provocateur. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Like the guy burning up AutoZone in broad daylight during whatever the riots were at the time. Yeah. It's always that.
Yeah.
But man, how much longer do you want to go? I don't know if you edit and you're gonna take this out. But I'm just curious how much longer you want to go on this, because I don't know how much more I have to say.
No, we're good, dude. We're good. We're right
I don't
in
even
an
know how
hour.
long that was, but I feel like we did a damn good job.
Yeah, we're right in an hour, man. I was ready to wrap it up if you were,
Sweet.
because I usually
Yeah,
go
yeah.
right around an hour. Sometimes
Cool.
things go off the rails and phew, but but we stuck to that COVID topic, and that wasn't really I hadn't spent a whole lot of time talking about it. So just plug away, man.
Sure. So anything I ever put out will be at individualispodcast.com. My Twitter account is Nick_individual. My latest episode is always the pinned tweet on my account. So if you go to my Twitter, you'll find the latest episode there. And if anybody wants to reach me about having me on or being on my show, the best way to reach me is at Twitter. And if you're not on Twitter, I have an email that you can reach me at on the website, individualispodcast.com. Now, before, I want to say one thing. Somebody just DM'd me the other day and just said, I want to be on your show. Please don't do that. That's not how you ask to be on somebody's show. But, yep.
Yeah, I have a couple of guys that ask me every now and then. Nobody's ever asked me that directly. They're like, "Hey, man, I got this idea for a show. If you want to talk about it." Like,
yeah.
Okay.
I just kind of ignored the guy. I was like, no.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you ever, you know how to reach me if you ever want me on your show.
Hell yeah, dude.
I don't ask to go on people's shows, except for Pete's, because I'm like, "Hey, dude, I got something to talk about." And your show is the biggest one I can get on. Every now and then I'll fuck around though. I will tell Toad, you better get me on fucking Tower Power Hour, motherfucker.
Dude, I don't know. We need to get a lot of folks on. We're trying to get the Slurp Gang boys on for an episode.
I think he was taking me seriously, dude. I was fucking like poking and prodding at him the other day, and I think he was taking me seriously. I was like,
probably
dude,
so.
I'm being a smart ass. Seriously, don't worry about it. If you want me on the show, I know you'll ask. I'm just fucking with you.
we got a lot of folks that we're trying to get on. That it's the fact that they only do one a week, which I think I need to talk to them and see about
game that was made for you to lose.
Too many people that are definitely willing to be on it. We need to talk to them.
It doesn't really matter how many times. It's the same old worn out stories, same old lines. They're all pointing dirty fingers in hypocrisy, bragging on their feats of mediocrity again. Never really making any kind of change, but they keep on getting re-elected, and I find that strange. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. Fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. What's it gonna take for you to see that we're living in a rigged democracy? People stand in line for the thieves that they've been choosing, paying no attention to the rights they keep on losing. But they all gather in the rallies and they chant their names on goddamn well that it's all gonna be the same. Just 4 more years of war and taxes, 4 more years of them grinding down their axes. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedom. Fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedom.